Hey guys, since your assignment this week is to start writing your own vignettes for our final project that goes with the House on Mango Street unit, I figured it made sense to walk you through actually how to write a vignette and then give you an example of one that I wrote myself. So let's quickly go through what it looks like. So the first thing to remember when you're going to write a vignette is that you're writing it as a moment in time. It doesn't have to be a story. It doesn't have to have a purpose. You're simply capturing a moment in time. You're going to give the reader a glimpse into a moment in a character's life. It can be your life. It can be the life of someone you make up, a fictional character. It can be someone you know, a family member or a friend. I've written it from my own personal perspective. I believe that that's probably the easiest thing to do, especially when you're just starting out, but you guys can make that decision for yourselves. You're going to show something that is important, but isn't necessary to a larger plot or purpose. You want to create an atmosphere. You want people to feel like they not only that they understand what you're saying, but almost like they feel as if they've been there or that they have some deeper understanding of the person because they read what you wrote. Be descriptive, 100% descriptive. The more description you can offer, the better your vignette is going to be. Use the senses. This is what we call imagery. You guys have all had the opportunity to do our figurative language family assignment, and so you have a fairly good understanding of what imagery is, but it's essentially where you use all of your different senses to explain or describe what's going on in the scene. Okay, use figurative language. This is where you get into your similes and your metaphors and your personification. And then your ultimate goal is to leave the reader with a distinct visual impression. You're going to show them. You're not going to tell them. Okay, you want to show insight into a character. Okay, that's your goal. All right, so I'm going to share with you a vignette that I wrote to give you a little bit of context before I take you to it. My parents recently sold the house that I grew up in, or they're selling it. They moved out. And that was hard. There's a lot of memories obviously tied to that house. And so I've been thinking about different things that, I associate from my childhood and growing up and all of that kind of stuff. And then recently I decided I was going to make blackberry jam. And blackberry jam is something that my mom used to make a lot when we were kids. And so it kind of just reminded me of my childhood and of growing up in this particular home. And, I've kind of had all of these thoughts kind of swimming around in my head. And so I used all of those to write my vignette. So I'm going to introduce you to my vignette entitled Blackberries. So I'm just going to read it and then we'll kind of pick it apart and I'll outline the different pieces that I included in it. Okay, so blackberries. There was a beast of a blackberry bush in the empty lot next to my house. Every summer, when the bush would flower, Kim and I would start keeping a watchful vigil over it until the berries would come on. We'd sit and scrutinize that bush for hours, like hawks sizing up our prey, predicting when the black bulbous berries might arrive. We would salivate as we fantasized about all the delectable delicacies our moms would make with our freshly picked harvest, hers cobbler and scones, and mine pie and jam. And when the bush finally yielded her crop to our begging, the air would hang with sweet fruity bliss, and Kim and I would brave the briars of the blackberry bush for the ripest rewards. We would spend days picking, laughing and gossiping and eating and picking. My childhood tastes like blackberries. So, not super long, a pretty decent sized paragraph, but that's it. So it doesn't have to be long, but hopefully after reading this or hearing this, you have a little bit of insight into one of our favorite pastimes when we were kids. Kim was my best friend growing up. She was my neighbor, and we would literally like tackle this blackberry bush every time the berries came on every summer. And it was one of our favorite things to do. And so as you look through my vignette, you see that I used imagery a lot. Okay, I talk about what the bush looked like with its flowering. I talked about the briars. That's kind of a feel one because anyone who's picked blackberries know that those thorns are horrible. This word salivate, that's a taste one. And I talk about all of the different yummy things that our parents would, or our moms would make us from our blackberry picks. This, obviously the last one would be a taste one as well. Laughing, that would be a sound one. Okay, so remember, this imagery idea is using all of the different senses. The metaphor that I use is at the very beginning, the beast of a blackberry bush. It kind of gives you an idea, not just of the size, because it was quite large, probably the size of like a box truck. It was big. So it gives you an idea to the scale of how big the bush was, but it also gives you kind of a sense of that it wasn't always like nice and easy. Blackberries are very, very thorny, and it wasn't always easy to pick blackberries. The simile I use is right here with hawks sizing up our prey. We really would like watch this bush and kind of make a game plan for what parts of the bush we would pick on what days. Alliteration I use a lot, all the way through. Beast of a blackberry bush, black bulbous berries, brave the briars of the blackberry bush. That B is an easy one to use because blackberry bush is, 3 B's right there. But then I also add in delectable delicacies and moms would make, sit and scrutinize, pray predicting. So it's easy to kind of throw in alliteration. Sometimes you do it without even thinking. But if you put a little bit of effort into it, you can really use alliteration well. And when you put alliteration into your writing, it also almost reads like it has a rhythm to it, which makes it more fun and engaging for the reader to read. Personification, remember that's where you assign human attributes to things that are not human. And so my 2 examples of personification in my vignette are the bush yielding her crop to our begging, like she's been listening to us and watching us sit and, scrutinize her, and she's finally decided to give up. Sort of like a mom who's tired of listening to her child beg for something and finally gives in. So that's my first example of personification. And then the next one is just right after that. The air would hang with sweet, fruity bliss. Well, obviously air doesn't hang, right? And then hyperbole. Hyperbole isn't actually something that we've talked about. You didn't do it as part of your figurative language assignment. But what hyperbole is just an exaggeration. And so my example of hyperbole here is we would spend days picking. While we did spend multiple days in a row, we obviously didn't spend all day every day picking blackberries. Although sometimes it felt like it because we spent a lot of time at that bush. Anyway, I hope this gives you a good model for how to write your own vignettes. Now, as you've gone through, we're about a little over halfway through the house on Mango Street at this point. There's a lot of really good examples that you can use to start or to use as, sort of an idea to write your own. Towards the beginning, you obviously could write about your own house. You could write about your family, like Esperanza does in the vignette Hares. You could write about a good day that you had when she writes about her good day when her and Nenny by the bicycle. Any of those you could kind of use as your idea to write your own vignette. Or you could do what I did and just pick, kind of this moment in your childhood that you remember fondly that, that you shared with a friend or with a sibling maybe, and just write about that. Either way, you are going to end up writing 4 vignettes. And so this week, go ahead and get started. I do want to see at least a rough draft of 1 vignette by the end of the week. If you have questions or you need additional instruction or help or ideas with how to do your own vignettes, you're certainly welcome to jump onto my Google Meets or to shoot me an email. Hope you guys are all doing well, and I will catch up with you later.